Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me thank you for being here. The stories on this podcast are meant to let you know that you're not alone in what you're going through, and that we can all find strength in struggle with the right perspective. If you've been enjoying the podcast, let me ask that you leave a review on your platform of choice to help us grow so that we can continue to make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 55. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very special guest out in Denver, Colorado, my good friend, Dan Stoddard. Dan, what's going on?
Not too much, man. What's going on with you?
Not much. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I don't even know how to describe our friendship at this point because I was trying to think back to when we originally connected. And I can't even remember if it's been 1 year, 2 years, somewhere in between, longer, shorter. I don't know. What is your take on our friendship, the timeline?
I don't know. It has to have been at least a few years ago because I think I just found out about you through Sam Tooley,
Yep.
and just because we had that connection from when Sam and I went to college together, and then just seeing, I think it was because you used to work at Alpha Fit Club, correct?
Yeah, there's a brief
Yeah.
period where I was handing out towels at Alpha Fit Club.
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah, so I think he started featuring you more
Yeah.
on his own social, and I feel like I just ended up probably clicking and checking you out, and I was like, oh, I resonate with this guy, and everything that he talks about, and values and everything. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it started.
Yeah. So it's been at least 2.5 years, I would say. And
Yeah.
the thing that I appreciate about our friendship, among many other things, is that we have the kind of friendship. And I think it's just because we're both the kind of people where you could pick up the phone after not talking for 4 months and just pick up exactly where you left off, go deep, and not have to kind of, stay on the surface for too long. And I just appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I mean, I agree. I feel the same way, and it's kind of crazy because obviously we've never met in person. It's just that one of those internet friendships. But I feel like honestly, sometimes those can be like the most vulnerable and like open in a way because I mean, between you and I feel like we both put ourselves out there quite a bit, and I feel like we're both very similar people. So I feel like the way that we hold ourselves and everything is very similar. So we get along, and I like that.
Agreed. Well, why don't we start here, Dan? For people listening, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so my name's Dan Stoddard. I'm originally actually from the South Shore of Massachusetts. Um, I went to college down in Connecticut at Fairfield University, majored in marketing. And from there, I just, started actually at a small marketing agency down in Connecticut. Was there for a few years before kind of bouncing around a few different jobs. Worked for a large consumer packaged goods company, selling water bottles, doing some marketing in different roles for them. And yeah, working for 47, which was or currently still is the if you have like a dad hat, it might say like it might have a little 47 on it. That's like what they're known for. So worked for them for a bit, and now I am I almost skipped over a big period of my life. Obviously with COVID happening, ended up diving headfirst into freelance for a bit, between photography, videography, personal training, and now I'm currently back at the company that I worked at before, that I was talking about, the bottled water company, doing more photo and video work. So yeah, that's just kind of like a brief, if I had to like condense my resume, and I'm much more than my resume, but I'm just trying to think to give people an idea of like who I am. But yeah, also runner, training for Chicago Marathon right now. And that's been going great so far. And yeah, just love fitness, love, photography and anything kind of creative, and um, yeah, connecting with individuals like yourself.
Yeah. What brought you out to Colorado, to be specific? Because I know it's not easy to leave family and friends and to go to a brand new place, but you seemed pretty up for it from the get-go. So what brought you there?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, just something new. I've grown up in the Northeast and went to school, basically my whole life, and to me, it's we just found ourselves, we meaning myself and my fiance, found ourselves doing a lot of the same things, and we just kind of wanted to go out and do something new while we could before getting married and buying a house and doing all of that kind of stuff that comes as you grow older. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to do something different, explore a new place that, she had been a few times before. We had road tripped out here in September, October of 2020. So that was a lot of fun, and really just kind of fell in love. Well, I fell in love with the city then. Kelly, my fiance, had actually known she wanted to move out here before we even met. And then once we met, she ended up putting those plans on pause for a bit, which I mean, I appreciate it, and it all worked out for the both of us.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's awesome, man. I was just thinking back also to one of our previous conversations rather, before you moved to Colorado, and you actually wrote a blog for my website. And the blog was titled Never Delay Gratitude. And I just pulled it up because I wanted to look back at the bottom of that blog. We have a quote in there from Alan Watts, and it goes, I have realized that the past and future are real illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. And you're a big gratitude guy. And I figure before we jump into the normal course of conversation on this podcast, we could talk a little bit about gratitude and the role that plays in both of our lives, and why we both feel that it's so important, to be intentional with gratitude in life. I'd love to just hear your updated take on it since the blog.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought about that just the other day as well. Because I was looking, I forget what I was doing. Oh, I think I was searching for um, I think it was the invite to this podcast, and I ended up typing your name into my Gmail search bar, and then I was like, oh my God, there's that blog that I sent him that I completely forgot that I wrote, because I think that was basically during COVID.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think my stance on it, I feel like pretty much remains the same more or less. I'm just super grateful to be able to have the opportunity to, live somewhere so beautiful, as Colorado, where, an hour away you can be fully immersed in the mountains and in nature. And um, I think having the opportunity to do that and being so close to, so many great places not only in Colorado, but, on the West Coast of the United States is great. And I mean, yes, it was definitely challenging to be able to like move out here with not really knowing people. My fiance, she knows a few people out here. But for myself, it's definitely been challenging. But I think the people that I have met, I'm super grateful for. Friends that I've met at the gym and people that I've become connected with that way, and through other, opportunities through photography and whatnot. I'm definitely extremely grateful for those people and to be able to live here. Um, and just for all of my friends and family for being so supportive of this journey that both Kelly and I are taking. And they realize it when they come out here, because we just had Kelly's brothers out here, and we have her parents coming next week as well. So I feel like once people come out here and actually see it, they understand more why we moved halfway across the country.
Yeah, it makes sense when you put it like that. And I'll bounce off of that and then kind of transition my take on gratitude into the first big question. But I've been talking to so many people recently, whether they're old clients, new clients, potential clients, people just in the Philadelphia community. And the more people I connect with, and I'm not sure if it's because I'm being intentional with being vulnerable and other people are willing to be vulnerable with me, but in recent weeks, I've just been having so many conversations with people where they've lost a loved one. They've had a diagnosis, a serious diagnosis like cancer or lupus or something along those lines that comes just out of nowhere and totally changes life. And meanwhile, I'm over here and I wake up and I've got a busy day. And sometimes my first gut reaction is, oh man, I don't want to do this. Like this is going to be hard. I'm ungrateful automatically. And I have to reframe that. I have to be very intentional with reframing that. But when you talk to these people and you're around people whose lives are full of hard things that they're not afraid to talk about, it helps you put things back into perspective and realize, hey, any day that I can get up, that I have my health, that I have my family, my friends, I can just put one foot in front of the other and breathe this air that I'm breathing in. It's a good day. And you have to choose that attitude and perspective because it's definitely not easy. And I don't think it's natural for most people to go to that side of things. I think being negative is real easy. So as we transition now into the first question, I want to keep that in mind. But Dan, what's the hardest thing that has ever happened to you? So something that you didn't necessarily get to choose, but something that happened to you. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I think one instance, where a hard thing was thrown at me, where really didn't have, the opportunity to choose, would probably be losing my grandmother back when I was a sophomore in high school. Unfortunately, she ended up getting lung cancer, but the twist there was that she never smoked or anything like that. So it kind of just came, it came out of the blue, and I feel like everyone was very surprised that that ended up happening. And she was a big part of my life. She was my mom's mom, and um, yeah, she just helped raise my brother and I when my parents were both at work, and would take us to do fun things. And I had so many fond memories with her from that period of my life, so much so that I got her initials ended up or I got her initials tattooed on my side. That was my first tattoo. And yeah, she just meant the world to me. And I remember being you know pretty sad for a good period of time. But I know that, her memory lives on in all of our memories, my family's memories. So that was definitely something that was super challenging at the time. And, I was also still so young, and you don't really truly realize how much, people mean to you until they're gone. And
Mm.
yeah, that's basically it. Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing. And I think that's a good point. What you just said at the end there is everything in life, right? Whether it's our health or a loved one or just something that currently exists in our world, sometimes we don't fully appreciate it until it's not there anymore. And I'm wondering for you if you've had any experiences, either recently or ever, where you've been able to truly feel that gratitude for things in the moment, almost as if you had lost them. And I'll kind of preface that a little bit more with the fact that I get so sad when I see old people walking on the street. Like when I see an old couple, let's say mid 80s, holding hands walking down the sidewalk, it's real cute. But I also get so sad and I can't help it. But I think my natural thought is they don't have that much time left. And it makes me more grateful for all of the time that I have ahead of me. So have you had any of those experiences or do you do anything similar like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I try to just really enjoy the present moment as much as I can. Like, for example, Kelly and I were at a concert last night at Red Rocks, and just being in that venue surrounded by people and just like listening to music that you love, um in just such like a beautiful place. I was like, just thinking to myself, I was like, this is crazy. Like the fact that we can even drive, 20 minutes to go to this world renowned venue to see, performers that we love, and like that bring us like good energy and all that. I think that was something that kind of came over me, right? I feel like those feelings kind of come over you in those certain moments, whether it's, you wake up in the beginning of the day, and yeah, you might have a long to-do list, but like, hey, at least you have a job, you have a roof over your head, you have food on your table, you got clean water there, just off the bat, you and I, right? We both have so many things to be grateful for, no matter what happens at the end of the day, whether it's a good day, a bad day, just a blah day. Um, so I do feel like just being the person that I am, I don't know if I necessarily like seek out those things. I feel like, I just, to your point, right? Like you see something, and then, just a wave of gratitude kind of comes over you. Or, you're in the moment of some sort of event, um, some sort of event, some sort of milestone in your own life that, you really have to take a step backward and be like, wow, like where I was yesterday and where I am today are two completely different places. And like, I'm grateful for both of them for different reasons.
Mm, yeah. I was looking back at some pictures from a recent family vacation that my wife and I went on with my wife's family. And in one of the pictures, I was in the background with my head down, looking at my phone. And I remember the moment specifically. We were on a dock next to a pond, and they were taking some pictures, and everybody was talking. And I had a message to respond to on Instagram from one of my clients. And I easily could have just, put my phone in my pocket, responded to it later, but I almost have hardwired myself to be prompt and, respond to things as soon as possible. And I didn't think anything of it in the moment. But when I looked back at the picture, I remembered exactly where I was. I remembered that dilemma that I had in my mind. And I just told myself, it's not that big of a deal. Let me just respond to this and I'll be right with everybody else. And in reality, it probably took a minute or two, but I do that all the time. It's a minute or two, multiple dozens of times a day where my head's down to my phone. And I feel that I miss out on a lot of those present moments where I could be super grateful for the fresh air or the sunshine or the people that I'm around. And yet I'm so distracted by my phone. And I think a lot of people listening could probably relate to that. But you're also in the world of social media, and so I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that whole thing.
No, I mean, I completely agree. And I find myself doing the same thing too. Like I take a break from work, immediately go on my phone, immediately check social media. And it's definitely a bad habit to have. And I feel like, in those moments where I need to be present, I try to be as present as I can. But to your point, right? It's like it's almost like a default, right? You have a moment of time, you have, any sort of break, and you immediately grab the phone to like go and check, what other people are doing. Um, when in reality, we should be focused on the people that we're with and enjoying the moment. And to your point, being present. So I know I definitely struggle with that, and I know it's something that I am consciously actively working towards. But um, yeah, it's got to be a habit established over definitely a long period of time, because you can't just you can't just break it in one day, right? Like you can try, and but you have to, continue that each and every day.
Yeah. And I think to just tie this back to your original answer to this question, sometimes I'm able to pull myself out of that really well. And it's when I think about the limited time that I have with the people that I love. And, whether it's 5 minutes at home with my wife or, you know, 10 minutes with my family or 1 minute around a group of friends, right? At the end of my life, I'm not going to remember the messages I'm sending. I'm not going to care about the time I spent on social media. I'm going to wish that I had more time with the people that I loved and cared about. And that thought will definitely pull me out of that moment. And so I just think it's a really powerful concept. And I'm glad that you brought it up with the loss of your grandmother. And I actually have a follow-up question for you that I don't always ask everybody with loss, but do you feel like you fully healed from that loss? Do you feel like there's pain left in that loss, or are you at peace with what happened?
Um, yeah, I think I am at peace with what happened. I mean, I think, one, it was a long time ago, and I feel like the way I don't obviously love the way that, it obviously happened, because I feel like she deserved more than that.
Mm,
But I think it teaches you a lesson, right? Like so many other things in life, to really cherish those times that you have with people, and to also, take a step back and realize how good you have it, right? Because at the end of the day, there's so many people out there that are going through worse things than than you are. So I think being grateful for where you're at in life and your health and all of those things that kind of come with it. So yeah, I think I've definitely healed from that. It's been, yeah, a long time now. What, like probably over 10 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're old men at this point. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So obviously that's a hard thing that you didn't get to choose. On the flip side, what's the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose and why have you done that thing?
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of a toss up between two things, honestly. I think the first thing would be training for and completing two marathons in the same calendar year. So that was super challenging. I don't know why I did it looking back, but um, the opportunity was there and I couldn't pass it up, especially to be able to run both Boston and New York in the same year in 2019. That was pretty crazy and an opportunity that, I didn't think I would ever get again. So I wanted to make sure I took advantage of that no matter how hard that was. And then I think the second one would be kind of what you're going through right now, like kind of dipping into that entrepreneur, like full-time freelance life.
Mm.
After I ended up getting furloughed and then laid off during that period of COVID and for, almost, yeah, for over a year after that. So I think it's really a toss up between those two things. Definitely two completely different things, but definitely hard for their own reasons.
Yeah, well, let's dig into both. I could relate very heavily to marathon training. We're both in marathon training, as you alluded to. You got Chicago, I've got New York. But that time period where you ran both marathons in the same year, so Boston and New York are spaced out by how many months, roughly?
So Boston is April, like we'll
Okay.
call it April 10th or something, like mid-April.
Okay.
And then Chicago is basically mid-October. So roughly 6 months.
Or was it Boston and New York or Boston and
Oh,
Chicago?
Boston, but yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Boston and New York. Yeah. And then New York would have been, yeah, beginning of
November.
November, end of
Yeah.
October. So
7.
yeah, probably 7.
Okay, so you prep for Boston. How does that one go? Prep and race.
Yep. So I think I started training in the winter. I believe it was even, yeah, December of 2018. So running in those cold, dark winter months was not enjoyable, but we got it done. And that made, I feel like training for Boston made New York that much easier because I knew I wasn't going to have to, go through that cold weather once again, which was awesome. Boston was my first marathon, so that was definitely challenging in its own way. I, got some advice from a family friend who's run countless marathons before. It's like don't come out too hot, like don't come out too fast. You're gonna burn out way too quick. So I made sure to take that super slow, and started to pick it up gradually as the race went on. And I ended up coming in at just under 4 hours, which was my goal going in, which was great. Took maybe a month or so, a month, maybe 2 months off after Boston before I started training for New York. So I think I ended up starting beginning of July timeframe. So obviously peak summertime, similar to what I've been doing now for Chicago. And that was just a completely different version of hard, right? Instead of being super cold, super hot. So that was definitely challenging, but luckily all of that training paid off and I ended up PRing my marathon time at New York, shaving off, I think it was close to 20 minutes. So I went from like 3:53 that I ended up getting in Boston down to like 3:36 at New York. That one I definitely came out super hot, but managed to rein it in and beat my time from last time, which was just the goal going into New York. So I was super happy with that, but definitely completely different training cycles and different races, but both challenging in their own right.
Yeah. So out of that whole calendar year with the two marathons, what was the hardest component of all of that? Was it time management? Was it the mental side of just training for a second marathon after Boston? Was it your energy? Was it everything? Like what was the hardest part?
I think it would probably be starting back up training after finishing that first one because I didn't really have much desire. It's summertime, there's lots of events and stuff going on. Wanting to spend time with friends and go to the beach and, do all that fun summer stuff. Um, so yeah, I would say probably picking that back up after, a month or two off was super challenging, but I knew that, I wasn't sure if I was going to ever get this chance to be able to do both of these. So I was like, I need to just like do it. And quite honestly, I was super surprised with how Boston went. So I was like, well, I mean, I've done one now. What's one more? Like I know the beast at hand, and I can, train a little bit better and hone in a little bit more than I did the first time. So to me, while it was daunting, it was also familiar.
Yeah, yeah. So this year, Chicago, what lessons or lesson have you taken from that year into this training, and how's training going?
To start with the back half of that question, training has been going great. So I ended up hiring a coach this time around, which I didn't do for either of the other two races. I just kind of went off like I know Runner's World puts out a template, for the first time runners marathon or whatever. So I basically followed that more or less to a T for those first two. But this time around, I'm really, trying to focus in on, building those miles and doing more interval training, which I
Yeah.
hadn't really done much before. So really that speed work. So hiring a coach has been awesome. That's something that I've done that I've learned from the past. And yeah, I think just focusing on recovery more. Um, with the amount of sheer miles that I'm putting in this time around versus the other two, I've really tried to focus on, my hydration, that warm up, making sure that I'm like activating my muscles, stretching, doing some like resistance band work with some of that. We have a Theragun, so that helps. And yeah, just making sure warming up, cooling down, and taking care of myself, hydrating and eating well.
I love that. It's easy to look at people who are marathon training from the outside and think that it's just about running. It's really so much more than just running. It's about all those small things that allow you to run consistently throughout prep. It's the stretching, it's the mobility, it's the strength training, the hydration, the sleep. Sleep has been a killer for me just with my schedule, adding in, 30 plus miles of running a week, still 8 weeks out from New York City. It cuts into your life, and sleep has been sacrificed a little bit on my end. So I'm learning as well, and it's been a lot of fun though. I will say the long runs, I get nervous for the long runs. Like I wake up on Saturday morning and I have like that nervous stomach, butterfly feeling. Does that happen to you, or am I just weird?
No, no, it totally happens, especially when you have such like a daunting number in front of you. Like this weekend, myself and Kelly, my fiance, we both have 18 miles. So that's gonna be, I think tied, at least me tied for the longest long run I've had during this training cycle. This is gonna be her longest run ever. So like, to kind of have that number in front of you, you're like, all right, let's get up, let's get going. We need to, get fueled and hydrated and kind of give that time to kind of sit, and then we'll go out and we'll tackle this thing. But I totally agree. Like, you see that number on the calendar, you're like, damn, all right, guess this is we're gonna do this today. It's gonna be, 2, 3, however long it takes to get it done. But yeah, I feel you on that one for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see how training shapes up for both of us. I know Chicago is going to go well for you. New York's going to go well for me. I'll have to break it down after the fact. But to transition a little bit to the entrepreneurial side of things, I very specifically remember I was in my car in a parking lot of a grocery store before work on maybe it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, kind of middle of the week. And we hopped on a phone call, and you were in that odd space where you weren't necessarily working your job because of COVID, and you were trying to figure things out on your end. I was trying to figure things out on my end, whether or not I was going to leave my job and pursue what I'm pursuing now. And I remember that conversation making me feel really good because I knew I wasn't alone in wanting something more and wanting something different. So take us through that time period and kind of you stepping into entrepreneurship, what that looked like, maybe what some of the challenges were, and we'll go off that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it was just the whole thing obviously was very foreign to me because, I was kind of forced into this. Well, not forced, but it was forced, but also chosen at the same time, right? Because I wasn't able to work that job that I had recently got. I think I was only 6 months into that job at the time. So, I was kind of forced to make a decision on what I wanted to do, whether it was find a new job, and just kind of, try to be proactive about that, or B, kind of follow this entrepreneurial route. And it was something that I've always kind of toyed with ever since I started photography was, just kind of branching off, trying to, get that business going more. And that's just what I kind of ended up doing. Just because it's something that I'm super passionate about, and I know that I could do, do great things if I put my whole heart and soul into it. So that was definitely super challenging in that way. I did have, not only photography, but I was doing some social media contract work on the side for a few brands and companies. And then I was also, a certified personal trainer, which I got during that furlough period, which was awesome. And was able to work at a gym for a short period. So I wasn't just, that one stream of income with the photography and all that. Um, I feel like I did that almost to have a little bit more of a security blanket for myself, so I wasn't just relying on one thing. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely challenging because I feel like while I had those security blankets, I feel like I was also kind of doing myself a disservice in a way because I was
Mm.
giving myself those security blankets to not, put all my time and effort and energy into, the photography, videography space. So um, it was definitely a challenging period in that way, just in terms of, being worried about where my next paycheck was going to come from, if people were going to pay me on time, just to like, make those ends meet, like, pay my rent, and just kind of live my life, comfortably, I guess.
Yeah, the last episode of the podcast, episode 54 with Brett Cherokee, he's a musician and he talked about how plan B is sometimes a really big distraction from plan A. Having that backup plan can take you away or take you out of that place where your back's against the wall and you have to push forward and you put all of your time and energy into this thing. And I think it's a really beautiful thought, but in reality, it's really hard to get there. And once you're there, it's a state of fight or flight, and it's not comfortable. And I don't think it's something that most people would want for a long period of time in their life. But at the same time, when I made the transition and it was me making it or not, I realized there was no safety net below me, but there was also no ceiling above me, not just financially, but just in terms of personal growth and freedom and being able to take ownership of my time and really my life. And that's what attracted me to the space. But I also had some sleepless nights in the beginning. You get anxious when people don't pay you on time, right? Like that's one of the hardest things doing the work that I do specifically is collecting money. It's really hard to peg people down, and not everybody's like you or I, where we're probably pretty on top of things. And so for you, Dan, were there moments in there where you were like, I can't do this, I got to stop, I got to quit, or were you pretty steady in the path that you were going?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think there was countless moments. I can't even think of just one because I feel like it happened so frequently. One week would be a good week, one week would be a bad week, and I'd be like, I need to find a new job. Because even during that entrepreneurial kind of time period, there was a couple different points where I was interviewing for full-time roles, just to have something. And, long story short, those didn't end up going the way that I wanted them to. Um, but yeah, there's not like one specific moment that jumps out to me that like that was the moment that, kind of caused me to want to, kind of drop that and just leave that whole chapter behind. Um, I probably would be still doing that now, even out here. I do think that, moving out here and not really knowing anyone, definitely played a role in my decision to end up taking a job with the company that I previously worked at in a new kind of role. Not only that, but also the role sounded like a great opportunity to be able to build my skills in the photo and video area and work with some great people and do some cool things. So I think, kind of having that fear, that fight or flight, I will say I did kind of end up flighting a little bit to something that was more familiar, um, just for that safety blanket. I think, I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but basically, like, I would, if I had to do it over again, like, I would like to at least try to put all of my effort into that, and I have a feeling that I will eventually. Um, but yeah, I mean, for now, I have a great opportunity, ahead of me. I've been able to do some really cool stuff, um, and I've definitely learned a lot, and that's been one of my main goals through this job that I have currently.
Mm. Yeah, and I also don't think that the word entrepreneurship has to look any kind of way. And you can pursue entrepreneurship with a full-time job. You can embody what it means to be an entrepreneur in everyday life. And the path forward also isn't straight. So like you alluded to, maybe that's something you jump back to at some point. But to take an opportunity where you have some level of security, where you can gain new skills, make new connections in an unfamiliar place, it makes sense, right? And I think sometimes people can look at entrepreneurship as all or nothing, in the fact that like once you go there, you have to stay there. And that's really, really scary. But I know plenty of people who've done their own thing and then circumstances change and they have a family and they need insurance, or someone gets sick and they have to change things up. And there's no shame in going to a stable job. But I think sometimes people get so wrapped up in the fact of like, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, got to do it all the way and I have to make it big. And it's just not like that, you know? Nothing in life is really like that. It's more of a zigzag than a straight line forward, if anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And like, I mean, can't obviously no one can see me, but I'm shaking my head over here because that's exactly how I feel. Even with, how you were just describing that, right? And that's why I feel almost like a sense of being like ashamed in a way. Like I copped out, kind of like I went for something more secure versus like trying to pursue that opportunity a little bit more. So I think to your point, right? I think there's that stigma that like if you are, dipping into that entrepreneurial space, that like you need to go all in 100%. And I don't know. I mean, I think that's right to some degree, but I think that's wrong to some degree, as well, because I do still have, I have my photography business. I, am trying to, book more shoots out here and get some more clients under my belt with different work there. So it's not that I like completely gave up. It's just not exactly being, it's not the main source of income. It's not my main job. It's just one of a couple other side jobs that I have paired with my we'll call it my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
um
And I also think entrepreneurship gets glorified. I think a lot of people put it on a pedestal because they see other people doing it. And, even for myself, right? I don't think I can ever see myself working for somebody else as an employee full time for the rest of my life. Now, to say that I'll never work for somebody else or never be part of an organization that isn't mine, I can't say that. I don't know what the future holds. And entrepreneurship for me is a vehicle. It's a lifestyle. It's a way to get to where I want to go. It's not the thing, right? Entrepreneurship allows me, and this is just me speaking for myself, to have freedom and flexibility and to be able to grow things the way I want to grow things. And for somebody else, entrepreneurship could mean something completely different. So I think it's a way that you get to where you want to go, not necessarily the end destination. It's not the end all be all. And to kind of bring this maybe in a different direction, but also relatable to a lot of people, my relationship with my wife, once I knew I wanted to marry her, which was pretty early on, like abnormally early on, like the first couple times we hung out, I knew that was the goal. Like I knew that's what I wanted to do. And, I shied away from her plenty of times. I probably wasn't the best version of myself plenty of times. She actually turned me down the first time I asked to be her boyfriend. And, you try different strategies and you go through different seasons and phases. And eventually it works out if that's what's meant to be. And I feel like entrepreneurship for me has been just as messy as what I just described with that relationship. So there's no right or wrong, but I can look back on it now and smile and laugh and see that that's how it needed to happen, and it's all good, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. And yeah, I definitely feel a similar way. Yeah, just with my fiance, and I'm just honestly super grateful for, you know, all of the times that I've, not only vented to her about work, but also have her there supporting me through that kind of like where that time where entrepreneurship was my main thing, if you will. And now, it's not necessarily out of the picture. It's just not as big in the picture. But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think, um, you know, having that person there is super, super helpful.
You know what's interesting? I just thought of this. So you're engaged, I'm married. We're on similar paths in our relationships. It's full commitment. And that's hard, right? Commitment and relationships are hard. And at the same time, those relationships allow us to do other hard things. We can be supported while we pursue those hard things. And I'll speak for myself. I don't know if I could do anything that I'm doing right now without the support and love and encouragement from my wife. Yet our relationship has its own hard things. And it's so interesting how one hard thing can help you do another. But I'm curious if you see it that way. And relationships are hard too. So if you have any advice for the people out there, Dan, I think people would be all ears.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with you. I don't think I could do any of the stuff that I'm doing like without having her as a support system because, there's and vice versa, right? Because there's days where she's gonna have a bad day where something's gonna happen at work with someone and she just needs me to listen to her and vice versa, right? Like we go back and forth all the time. And um it's been challenging in some ways, right? Because when one person's up, the other person's down, and it keeps kind of seesawing back and forth, if you will. Um, so that's been tough, especially through growing pains of new jobs for both of us, and having to figure that out together. But I think in terms of just relationship advice, honestly, like I think just over communicate, and like communication is going to be your best friend because at the end of the day, if you get into a disagreement about something, not talking to one another is not going to do any good for anyone. And just letting your like getting your thoughts out there on anything, and just talking through those certain things. And um I forget where I heard it, but I've definitely heard it. It might even be from like a TV show or something, but like not going to bed angry at each other, right? Like talk through the things that you need to talk through. Yeah, you might not be like the most happy with them, but at the end of the day, if they're going to be your partner for the rest of their life, they're going to be able to forgive you about, basically anything more or less.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a team thing, I didn't necessarily see it that way right at the beginning, but I remember early on in our marriage, I was just having a really tough day. And I was being really hard on myself because I felt like I should have been there and been better for my wife. Like I needed to give 100% to hold up the relationship at any given moment. And it was one of the first times where I realized that no, that's not the case. And my wife actually told me, she said, "Hey, this isn't 50-50. It's like some days it's 100%, 100%. Some days I'll be at 20, you'll be at 80. Some days I'll be at 10, you'll be at 90, and vice versa." And I realized it was okay to lean on her for support. And that was actually one of the harder things that I had to learn early on in our relationship, that it was okay to feel weak and to share that with her, and to know that then she was still going to love me and she was going to support me, and that she could be strong for us in those times that I felt weak. And it's just such an amazing thing to have that person and to be part of that team. So yeah, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with you. Just going through, like I said, the trials and tribulations of, new jobs, living out here, being without family out here. It's definitely been tough. And yeah, to your point, right? Like one person's gonna be on it and one person's gonna be having a tough day. And it's just about how having those trade-offs and those balances with one another. Yeah, there was something else I was gonna say, but it escaped my mind. So
That happens to me all the time. A couple years ago, I had an older patient, and this patient used to scream things out in the middle. I'd be in a conversation with somebody else, and this patient would scream a thought out loud. And one day I went over to her and I said, "Hey, listen, I appreciate you communicating with me, but can you just wait until I'm free, and not interrupt these conversations?" And she said, she's so honest. She was like, "I'm sorry. My thoughts are like a train. It's like a bus. And if I miss the bus, the next one's not coming for a really long time." So I get that. That happens to me all the time. I love how honest old people are.
Oh my
Just
God.
so honest.
No
Uh,
filter.
no filter. But with that being said, Dan, all the things we talked about, whether it's our career or our relationships or training for a marathon, they require endurance. So, simple question, what does the word endurance mean to you?
Man, I'm not gonna lie, I did even some prep work and had some notes down here. And even, in the on the intake form I put, it means to me that no matter what the circumstances and how hard things may get, that you'll continue to push on in life. Um, I think that's true, but I think it's also false because you don't need to continue to like keep pushing every day, right? Like some days you're going to feel really good like we talked about and you're going to be on it, and other days you're not, and maybe the goal for that day is just existing. Just get through the
Mm.
day, just make sure that you keep showing up. Um so I think I'm going to kind of change my answer to have it be, just consistency, just keep consistently showing up, whether that's on the good days, on the bad days, and kind of everything in between, because this this life is quite literally a marathon. So you gotta take the good with the bad, and just keep pushing forward, and learning from yesterday and putting that into today and tomorrow.
I love that. I also want to read Dan because when I have a guest come on the podcast, one of the things that I ask the guest to share a little bit about is their life story in 2 sentences. And I don't usually share this, but I feel like it fits pretty well into our conversation. So you wrote, "Go after what you want and what makes you happy while being kind to others. You'll thank yourself later." And when I think of endurance, or usually when I think of endurance, I think of me and I think of obstacles and setbacks and resistance and struggle, but it's just me in that thought. And what you wrote there all made me think a little bit different, where I thought, okay, endurance is about me. It's about you. It's about the people going through the hard things. And it's also about the people around us, the people who are both supporting us and helping us endure, but also the people who we can help in their endeavor of endurance, the people who we can lift up, who we can be kind to, who we can lend a hand to and walk with them through whatever it is that they're going with. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about you is you're always there for the people in your circle, myself included. And I think it's really easy to overlook other people when we think of our struggles, our obstacles, and our endurance. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely stand by this one because I feel like it's so easy to get caught up in your own head and your own life, but when you truly like put anyone else but yourself first, that really helps not only like put things in perspective, but gives you more gratitude. And like by filling someone else's cup, like I feel like you kind of also in turn kind of fill up your own as well. And we go through this life, right? Like we can't do our own life just by ourselves, right?
Mm.
Everyone needs other people around them, whether it's to help them or to unfortunately maybe teach them a lesson about something, right? Like people are going to be they're going to play different roles in our lives, but I think if people can actively try to be kind not only to others but also to themselves, it'll make just like the world a better place. So um and I think when you're feeling good, you're able to have that energy to be able to again, like put that out in the world, but to be able to do things that you want to do just because they make you happy.
Mm. I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent, but I'll bring it back.
Okay.
One of my biggest pet peeves is when people claim that they are self-made. While I understand the intention behind that phrase, yes, you can work hard. You can do a lot of things by yourself. You can do a lot of things on your own. But at the end of the day, nobody who's done anything great has done them alone. And I will fight anybody on that. And even if you think about it, Dan, you and I are recording this podcast on two separate computers that we did not build, and somebody is listening to this podcast through a speaker system or headphones that they did not create. There were hundreds, if not thousands, or tens or hundreds of thousands of people who had to come together and contribute for this conversation to be a possibility. So on that level, I'll prove anybody wrong. But just on a more tangible level, everybody we interact with influences our life, big, small, or anywhere in between. And like you said, we also have the opportunity to do that for other people. And I think sometimes we overthink it. We think I have to do something big or something grand, but really like hold the door for somebody, smile at somebody, send a nice text message, because you never know when those things are going to find somebody in a really, really low place and how impactful that might be for a person that you don't even know they're going through something. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I completely agree. I mean, I think it's at the end of the day, it's always going to be those little things that are gonna brighten someone's day. And I know I appreciate that a lot when, yourself, because I know you're great at giving compliments to people. When I hear it from, someone like you or anyone around me, because, myself, I'm super hypercritical of myself and my skills and, kind of, what I bring to the table. And just, as a human being, sometimes I'm trying not to be, but I have the tendency to compare myself to others a
Mm.
lot. So when someone, reaches out and compliments me, I really I internalize that, and I'm super, super appreciative. And I will let you know time and time again of how appreciative I am
Mm.
of, said compliment. And, that's kind of a ripple effect, right? Because if someone compliments me, I'm going to go out of my way to compliment someone else. Or like maybe I start it, maybe I text one of my friends and be like, I love how you did X, Y, and Z. And that, that maybe makes a ripple effect in their life. And they go and tell, their significant other or their friend or their mom or dad or whoever. Right. So I think at the end of the day, if we can just, try to continue to be kind and like see the good in people and compliment people, it's going to be, hopefully a larger ripple effect than we even know.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, before we move to the last question, I'm going to do something different here. If you're listening to this podcast in a second, when I'm done speaking, just pause this briefly and find someone in your contacts on your phone who you haven't talked to in a while. Think of something genuine, kind that you can tell that person and just send a quick text message and then come back to us and then listen to the last couple minutes because Dan's got some fire to spit. I just know it. So last question, if you're back from that pause, Dan, if somebody's listening to this podcast and they're going through a real tough time, they're maybe in a dark place, they're having trouble moving forward and they're just not sure where to go or what to do, and you're about to speak directly into that person's ears, what would you say to that person?
Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, I wrote down a few things that, first came to mind when I was thinking of this question because I did my homework. I watched a bunch of episodes between yesterday, today, Tuesday. Um, but yeah, some parting words. I mean, I would honestly say, tomorrow is a new day, right? I think most things in life are temporary, and I think, having that hope and trying to do that next right thing is going to continue to set you up for, however long you choose to do it. But I mean, yeah, as bad as today might be, tomorrow, while it's not guaranteed, is, a clean slate and a new opportunity to do something great.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to feel like we want to throw away a day when it starts bad or throw away things when they're not going well. But if you lost a little bit of your money, would you throw away the rest? Is how Brett Shiroki on the previous episode phrased it to me. And I think it's really true. Tomorrow's a new day. It's full of opportunities, full of possibilities. And at the same time, be where your feet are. Take a deep breath and pause, look up, look around, and just be grateful for the fact that your heart is beating and that you're here right now, because not everybody gets that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And I feel like I've seen this on someone's social media page before, right? When you get caught up in worrying about something, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 seconds worrying about it. So I've been trying to embody that, that kind of mantra and that way of thinking, especially when it comes to work stuff, right? Because we get caught up, like someone pisses us off or does something that we don't necessarily like, that, rubs us the wrong way, right? If you're not going to remember it in 5 years, maybe even like next week, like just drop it. It's not worth any of the stress or the worry that comes with it. So I think if people are able to do that, and kind of, rein that back in and just be like, is this really worth getting upset over? Then I think, yeah, everyone will be better for it, hopefully.
That's really well said. And for anybody listening who wants maybe a practical exercise, sometimes I'll talk to people about the 5 minute rule, which essentially is, if you're feeling something, if you're frustrated, angry, sad, whatever it is, it's okay to feel that, right? Feel it for 5 minutes, set a timer, scream into a pillow, go for a walk, like cry, be sad. And then when that timer goes off, put that thing behind you. And like Dan said, it's not going to matter in 5 years. Don't spend more than 5 minutes or even 5 seconds on that thing, because you got to move on, and it's not going to help you to hold on to that. So, yeah. Dan, anything else to add here before I tell people where to find you?
I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot. Now that you said the 5 minute thing, I think it was actually 5 minutes, not 5 seconds. So I'm going with your version on that one. But no, I'm just super, super honored to be on here. I mean, I know you've had some awesome guests come on, so I'm just honored to be, part of the club.
Absolutely, man. You fit right in. And I'm so grateful that you spent some time with us today. If people do want to connect with you on social media, follow along with what you're doing, or just soak in some of your positivity, where should they go to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm mainly on Instagram. I don't really use any other platforms really. My personal handle is D, and then for Daniel, and my last name Stoddard, Stoddard, the number 22. So that's my Instagram handle. And then if you go there, you'll see I have my photography handle linked in my bio, where I post, all of my photos and whatnot. I obviously post some on my own personal page, but from different work and shoots that I've done, I'll post that content on my photo page. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you're in the Denver area and want to shoot, hit me up. Or if you just want to chat about, anything, my door is always open, and looking forward to connecting with anyone that reaches out.
Yeah. And for anybody who's listening, Dan is one of those people who, if you message him, he'll get back to you and you won't be sorry you did it. So reach out to Dan if you're on the fence. Dan, I appreciate you tremendously for this conversation, for everything that you do, and as a friend. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, man. Likewise, I really appreciate our friendship. It's kind of crazy that we've never physically met in person, but even just seeing you, like you're in your face across the screen, has been crazy. And I've pretty much been thinking that the whole time, how this is the first time we've actually like spoken and being able to like see each other on the other end. But yeah, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate our conversations and being able to not only talk about, marathon training, but also relationships and get deep into it. So appreciate that.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, man. If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.